Physicist and science educator Lawrence Krauss, author of A Universe from Nothing, has been accused of various forms of sexual misconduct as the result of a whispering campaign and a few people coming forward. We don't know whether this is true or not yet. He's denied the accusations, but by now I think we all know how this narrative runs. Accusations come out, there's no police investigation, there's no actual evidence, it's just hearsay and rumour and accusation. But all his speaking engagements get cancelled, his job comes under threat, and every man jack of a certain particular political bent comes out, and there's no other term for it but virtue signalling. Virtue signals by saying they believe women, listen and believe, and taking it all as true. Now, against the backdrop of Me Too and the whole cultural zeitgeist that's going on around these things at the moment, I think the general public can be forgiven, even if they should be chastised for this kind of lynch mob mentality. But when it comes to the atheist and skeptic community, I think we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We supposedly pride ourselves on our skepticism and our commitment to evidence, reasoned thinking, and so on, and so we should not succumb to this same lynch mob mentality. And yet, now these things tend to move rather quickly, so by the time this video comes out, he may have confessed to something, some actual evidence may have come out, some sort of police investigation or something may have actually kicked off, but that's not going to affect any of the points that I make in this upcoming segment. They are universally applicable, and they apply whether he turns out to be guilty or not, and they apply to the doubtless numerous cases that are going to continue to arise. Now, as any skeptic, as any new atheist ought to know, claims require evidence before we should believe them. The burden of proof is always upon the person making the positive claim. The person claiming that something happened, that something works a certain way. And we should at least suspend judgment, or on balance of things, hold that accusation or claim to be negative until it's proven sufficiently. So, yeah, it doesn't matter whether that's a claim that a god exists, or that someone's invented anti-gravity, or that light is simultaneously both a wave and a particle. We need to suspend judgment until there's evidence. So when these accusations come out, the mere fact that there has been an accusation should not be enough for any of us if we are going to be consistent in our logic and our rationality and our reason. And this is universally applicable, and it's a basic principle that lies behind science and behind the judicial system. We hold people to be innocent until proven guilty. We hold claims to be false until proven true. And this works, and this works very, very well. It's one of the most basic fundamental principles behind the Enlightenment, behind liberal democratic societies. And we suspend that at our peril, because it tends to lead to all manner of injustices and mystical thinking and faith and so on. So when someone makes a claim, you should not hold it to be true. This whole listen and believe thing is very infectious and very dangerous, and sooner or later it's going to harm people even more than it already has. So we should suspend judgment, and we should wait for there to be evidence. But people seem inclined to hop on this bandwagon, and it's weird and it's disappointing to see that happen within the atheist skeptic community, because it wouldn't happen within that community in relation to just about any other claim you care to mention. And yet in this one instance, a certain wing of that community seems completely hell-bent on tossing their reason and their logic and their demands for evidence out of the window for political expediency, for insulation against similar accusations, in order to signal their virtue. It's not entirely clear why they would do such a thing. And furthermore, they hold any demand for evidence or rationality or reason, or to suspend judgment, or to treat any of this reasonably as somehow defending the accused who they've already presumed is guilty. Now, Krauss has been a victim of this himself. He's stepped forward a couple of times when people have been accused of things to say, hang on, we should wait for evidence, we should be patient, we should suspend judgment until something is proven to be true. Unfortunately, he has in that process defended people who have turned out to be guilty. And this is now being taken as him supporting them in their crimes or their misdemeanors, rather than him making a basic demand for logic, reason, evidence, and due judicial process. Now, this isn't the court of law, this is the court of public opinion, but those principles, that demand for evidence, that is a universal. It applies even in these situations. If you're friends with someone who's made the accusation, then you can trust, but you should still verify and make sure that what they're claiming is true. And people don't seem to be doing that, and that's very worrying. It's what leads to these social lynch mobs. So, please reaffirm the requirement for evidence, the necessity of it, before you judge someone as being guilty, before you judge an idea as being right. And now I'm going to go into a few reasons why I am particularly skeptical in this instance. You may not be aware if you're an outsider, but there has been an ideological struggle within the atheist and skeptic movement for some years now. It's not exactly an ideological struggle, it's between people who want to keep atheism and skepticism free of ideology and those who want to bring ideology in. It's between the skeptical atheists and the political atheists, if you like. Because way back when, there used to be an alliance between these two forces, when the evangelical right was more powerful earlier on, 80s and 90s really, their powers waned, might be on the up again. But there was this sort of alliance of convenience between skeptics, rationalists and atheists and those who opposed the evangelical right. As things have gone on, as things have changed, as these progressive, but not particularly progressive, ideas have taken root and hold and gained authority and power in the culture at large, this ideological wing within skepticism and atheism has tried to exert power and control and to insert their politics, their progressive politics, into the atheist and skeptic community. While skeptic atheists are concerned with what's true, whether it's unpalatable, whether it's politically expedient or not, and they treat a lot of ideas that the ideological side of the atheist community hold dear with the same skepticism they would hold to religious ideas. And that doesn't sit well with that other group. There have been various attempts at coups, I guess. Atheism Plus was one of them, which was an attempt to wed atheism and skepticism to progressive social justice. It failed pretty horribly, but has left a deep rift within the community. And so that's where we are today, and little skirmishes continue to be fought, and the community has divided into at least two. So, one of the people making these kind of accusations towards Krauss is Melody Hensley, who you may remember as the person who claimed to have PTSD from Twitter. One of the other main prosecutors in all this is Rebecca Watson, who you may also remember from Elevatorgate, which also nearly tore apart the atheist community because she overreacted to someone asking her back for coffee, and battle lines were drawn over that. My suspicions are further a little bit raised due to the fact that there has been a behind-the-scenes conflict. The Secular Coalition of America has what they call the heads, so all the people who are basically in charge of all these various secular, skeptical and atheist groups who come together to discuss how to proceed, basically. And there was an attempt to push some kind of agenda, it's not particularly clear what, by the secular women group. I suspect it's more of this ideological stuff that we've been talking about, and as a result they have now been excluded, because they're not actually sub-members of the Secular Coalition of America, they were just kind of invited in at members' sufferance and so on. And at the same time as they're being rejected is the same point that this is coming out, which seems a little bit convenient. Now, I'm not going to say there's a conspiracy theory. I don't have any evidence for this. All I am saying is that I have reasonable grounds for suspicion, and due to the people who are making these accusations having very little credibility, due to the ideological nature of the conflict, and due to the ongoing problems around Me Too and similar events, yeah, my reasonable doubt has a bit more stretch to it than perhaps a lot of other people's. Yeah, ultimately, for me, it comes down to this. I have a principle as a skeptic that what convinces me is evidence. Not hearsay, not rumour, not the claim itself. I don't just believe people because of who or what they are. I believe evidence. And I don't make an exception for this on the basis of someone having a vagina or whatever else. You know, it doesn't lend them any extra credibility. You may want to sit down, but I don't believe women. I believe evidence. I mean, I don't think you'd believe this person just because they're a woman.
He's not a Christian! She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
Are you a skeptic or not? Do you wait for evidence or not? Do you believe in due process, in innocent until proven guilty, or not? Do you believe things just because people say so or make a claim, or not? Do you belong in this community or not? Just have a think about it. How much are you willing to sacrifice? Do you really want to pick up a torch and join the mob? Or do you want to be the one voice of reason that maybe stops it tipping over the edge? Zang.
They love their parents like God, yet they persist by me.